Well, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, no matter what time of the day it is for you. We want to thank you for joining us here today on this episode of the Chimney and Fireplace Success Network. Here we are heading towards the middle of May. It's hard to believe, but we're into the middle of the fifth month of 2023. And the days just rapidly seem to go away. I don't know if it's an age thing, but it just seems like time passes more quicker than it ever has in the past. So today, what we're going to do is I've asked everybody on the broadcast to come up with what they consider to be some hot tips for 2023. As for my own, I'm going to take some of the things that I've picked up this year in the SWAT meetings that I've done, and that's going to be where I'm going to base mine at. But hopefully, everybody here has come up with some good hot tips. I'll guarantee you, Brandy has more hot tips today than we're going to be able to even fit in this show. Would that be right, Brandy? I see her holding her paper up already.
Got my papers ready.
You got your paper ready. So, Brandy, let's start with you. What's top of your list for hot tips for 2023?
To be more productive.
To be more productive. Okay,
Yep.
so how do people do that? How do you think they're losing their productivity?
Wasting time. I'm guilty of it. Just wasting time on social media, or you have that task that you don't want to do. So you kind of like put it to the side and check your phone or go do something else. And unfortunately, if we wait for that motivation to come to do it, we'll never get it done. So just have to be more productive, utilize the hours that you have in the day to the best of your ability. There's Parsons' law that says that work fills the time allotted. So if you have 20 tasks to do and you only have 4 hours, you're going to get them done. If you have 20 tasks to do and you have 8 hours, you're going to get them done, but you're going to drag them out over that 8 hours.
That's it. So sometimes building that priority list and staying on track. So, Josh, how do you remain productive? Okay. How do you return your phone calls and everything else and reply to the text that you're supposed to without getting overwhelmed, buddy? You got to turn your mic on, Josh.
Sorry, there's too much background noise today. Kids are home today. Um, the getting overwhelmed part is the hard part, right? Because especially if you're me and like I've been doing inventory this week. So I've been looking at spreadsheets and galore for the last 4 days. And just because we have almost 8,000 SKUs in our system, and not all those are active. But for me, like I almost have to turn the phone off, like because there's just, I mean, the big problem is for me is like as soon as that phone dings, I want to hear it. I want to like, who is it? What's it? And then I don't have time to reply. If I don't reply, then I'm not going to reply at all right that second. So that's a really good question. It was almost like, for the, I don't know what I was going to say. Almost like what we do in the showroom on a Saturday when the phones are ringing off the hook. You just take them off the hook and you call everybody back at the end of the day. Like you just schedule, like for me, the kids get home at 4. So at 3 o'clock, I would need to start calling people back but that gives me a hard out because I know there's about to be 2 kids in my face any second as they're running around the house today, buzzing, trying to get my attention, doing goofy stuff.
Well, one of the things you just said, I think it's a hot tip for people is the inventory. If you keep it current, would you be under the stress you're under right now?
No, it's a it's almost has to be part of your monthly meetings. Um, and you have to drill down on it hard. Like, why do I have duplicates? Why is so and so entering things? Like, because with me, I have for every vendor, how I want the prefixes and the SKUs to be set up. And when they don't do that or they're having trouble finding something, that irritates me. Because like today, I must have found 4 dozen duplicate SKUs. So you're like, oh, well, why is all the inventory off? And it's just like, well, because it's actually was received on, line 48, and we depleted it on line 2048. So if you keep on top of those negatives and you can have a few things you can spot checking on the regular.
Josh, do you guys close to do inventory? Like I know some shops close to do inventory a couple times a year. No,
we don't do it. I mean, part of it too is like, Christ, I must have $20,000 in gas fittings and gas piping, but that's not inventoried. You know, like it's one of those deals. Like I budget so much, fittings for every job. Like I have a number I budget for, but we don't account for every nut and elbow and nipple and all that.
Yeah, got you covered. So, Cheryl, what would be one of your hot tips for 2023 that you're learning that will help people out?
Basically, just learn the art of good communication. Learn to talk to people. Learn to listen to people. With the act of communication, you can answer a lot of Josh's emails and things. For me, as far as communication goes, I try not to waste time with it. I set alerts for only the people I want to get a notification from. I mean, I get hundreds of texts, it seems like a day, but I only look at 8 or 10 people's. So that's my way of taking communication and learning how to deal with it. I don't waste the time listening to what I don't need to, and I don't respond to what I don't need to. But most leaders just don't learn communication. They learn demanding. They learn just not to answer things. And I think that's where we go wrong in our business, because you're missing the huge factor that you can control.
Yeah. And you kind of stole my thunder on mine, because one of the things that always comes out in the SWAT meetings, as you guys know, is that communication is the top issue that comes up in a SWAT meeting. I did 2 this week. And again, communication was right there as a number 1 challenge. People in the company are just not communicating. In fact, I had a client, one of their office workers called me this morning and wanted to know and said, we have an abbreviation here and we thought that you might know what it is. And I said, what was it? And it was LOR. So Brandy, do you have any idea what LOR abbreviation would be for?
I have no idea. My kids send me abbreviations all the time and I tell them, you have to tell me what that means.
Yeah. And Josh, what about you? You're a skilled technician. Does the abbreviation LOR mean anything to you?
Not a damn thing.
No. Cheryl, what about you?
Lack of responsibility, I guess.
Right. And it didn't mean anything to me, but what we had here was we had a complete stall because this was a note in a job. And so they're sitting there. And not only that, the person that called, Randy, this is one of our superstar CSRs. Okay. I'm not going to say who it was. So finally, she sent me a note back because they contacted the owner, and LOR meant liner on roof, believe it or not. And it's like, I don't know how anybody wouldn't know that. And she said, I think I'm going to put together a dictionary of all the abbreviations. I said, yeah, that may just help. But this is what goes on. This lack of communication so often robs the company of time and creates chaos in the job site. So, Brandy, you agree with what I'm saying?
I do. I think we should ask Aaron there what his top idea is for 2023. Aaron, do you have an idea?
No.
Tell your sister, tell B to think about an idea for us. Going back to the LOR though, like I love abbreviations actually, just coming from the medical world. We use a ton of abbreviations, but they're like standard abbreviations that everybody knows. So I think a company could come up with standard abbreviations as long as everybody is aware of them, that could work really well. I mean, I actually like that idea.
Yeah,
so
I do too.
Is adaptability.
Right.
We have to be able to adapt. I had to adapt this week. We had a trainer in town, so things were busy and having caterers come in. And then one of my gals who's been working with me for 4 years is sicker than I've ever seen her. And so she's out sick. And Madison had today planned off anyway because she was going to her kiddo's school. It's the end of the school year. And so they're having all kinds of activities. So I'm the only one on phones. So I came in early this morning to get like all my regular work done so that I could concentrate on answering phones. And Jeremy's helping a little bit too. but I had to quickly adapt and change course. And I think that we're only going to be successful if we can adapt. And it seems like every day in today's world, we're called to adapt in some way or another.
Yep, I understand. Josh, how important do you think communication is? I mean, you're working with people trying to get their SOPs, putting together a digital knowledge base for them. Are you finding out that companies are not sharing the information properly with each other that could save them tremendous amount of time and reduce the waste in the business?
Yeah, I'm seeing it because they're not sharing it. Well, there's not one central space to, to share these things. Um, I'm just finding that this person has this in their folders and it's on their desktop. Then there's another person who has it in Dropbox, and then another person has something in Drive, and then it's just on someone's computer over here. And I'm like, oh my God, well, like, what? The techs aren't here. What are they doing? And what are they doing in their documents? How are they, getting stuff? And I always think about it from the point of the technician, right? Because I've done every position there is to do in this industry. And I'm like, okay, what would benefit me in the field? And also as the manager of, if the guys aren't working, they're not making me money. Right.
Yep.
So if they're coming in and talking to HR because they can't find the policy, it's never a 5-minute trip in the building. Ever. It's 30 minutes. It doesn't matter. It's 30 minutes. Because then they're going to use the bathroom. Then we're going to get water. So, all those things, all of a sudden, that conversation just became really long. Then they're going to talk to so-and-so on the way out. And, that's how I think of things. Like, all right, how do I keep that guy moving at all times? And that's one of the ways is to, have everything shared so they're not coming in asking for it. They can be at home. I need to take time off. I can do that right on my phone. How do I do that? Where's that time off for them?
Yeah. So communication means we're sharing the useful information within the company. So Brandy, do you see from your aspect, from the clients you're working with, that there is a failure often to communicate properly? I mean, you and I have gone through this week with one client where from your investigation into the software, we're seeing they're leaving out a critical component, correct?
Yeah, I mean, and you and I've done SWATs together. It's for 99% of the companies, it's always the number one complaint is the lack of communication. I think you can't over communicate. I think there's no such thing as over communicating.
Yeah, and I agree. So Cheryl, that was a good one. I think you hit on a good one. That one of the hot topics, hot tips for 2023 is to increase your communication style where other people know what's going on. So Josh, what about you? You got a hot tip for 2023 you want to share?
Well, going back, sharing is caring. If you have people sitting there hoarding knowledge, I always find that they're usually not looking out for the company's interest, just more of what's their interest. And if that person's not willing to share that information, there's a problem there.
Yeah. So as you built your digital knowledge base up for your own company at Tri-County, and now you're putting this together for clients, I mean, are you seeing where this can be a monumental time saver for 2023?
Well, I mean, so one of the clients, it's like they go to this is one of his biggest frustrations. Well, they go to the supply house and they forget our account number. And I'm like, well, that's stupid easy to fix, like that's a shareable spreadsheet. 10 seconds, we can solve that issue. For me, it was always the stuff they could research, but weren't willing to Google search or call the vendor or, one of my favorite sayings is always, and my staff will tell you, I say this all the time, how many monkeys does it take to F this football? And of course because it's like, you don't need to involve A, B, C, and D person, you can call the vendor directly and get that information. You can go in the folders and get that information, because what I'm finding is, since I'm more out of the process, they're taking care of that stuff on their own, because they'll try and push it off to me whenever they get the chance. But if you have that information for them and you just got to give them a little push, it's just like, okay, what's the next step? Okay, why didn't you call the vendor? And then in my systems, they have access to everybody, from the sales rep to the main number, to account numbers, dealer logins. That's all readily available to them. So I'm like, okay, why are you calling me when you could have called the vendor? You knew I wasn't available. I'm not all, like, I try to answer the phone when I can, guys, but like, it could be. And of course, before I was coaching with you guys, Brandy will tell you I was notorious for calling at 12 on a Friday. For whatever reason, my body said, now's a good time to talk to Brandy.
Yeah.
And I said, I do a podcast every single Friday at that time.
Well, and Josh, yeah, in some ways you are a pain in the ass clients. So, hey, what can we say? But anyway, communication, what's there? And Josh just gave another one right there of what he's doing. Cheryl, what'd you pick out of what Josh just said?
Well, I totally agree with Josh. What I got out of what he was saying was, if you keep all the information within your brain, you're going to become the crutch. And people are going to always be coming to you. They're going to always be wasting your time. So the idea behind that is get it in writing somewhere where everyone can find it. And it just makes it more simple in a company. It increases communication along with the sharing. And you don't have to all the time back up on somebody else to find out your answers.
Yep. And our friend Chuck Roydhouse, he just put in a good tip, and I'm going to agree wholeheartedly with this. He said a good tip moving through 2023 would be to identify your true break-even man-hour cost per person, refine your lean processes, focus on sales training, solution resolution, as there is tough sledding approaching June through December of this year. Tight credit lending requirements, high interest rates continue, and commercial real estate market is pressuring regional banks. So all those are very true things. And so one of the things is to know what's happening and try to anticipate what's coming down the road in coming months, because a lot of economic experts are forecasting that come June or July, we could be heading into a very major recession at that point. And we got to prepare our companies for it. And it's kind of late at this point to build up your reserves if you've only got a couple months to go. And so people might be in some really big doo-doo this year from not watching this and predicting it. I mean, just about everybody that we talk to, they're seeing a slowdown in calls. They're seeing a slowdown in sales. 2023 is a tough market. So one of my things is, it's time, if you're not doing it, to start the SWOT process, where you're examining your strength, your weaknesses, your opportunities, and your threats in the company. And what you've got to do is involve your people into it. It's one of the forms of getting what I call and refer to as employee buy-in, where your team members are buying in to what you're doing. Now, Brandy, you've participated with me on site with SWOTs in the past. Am I on track with what I'm saying, or am I going off into left field here?
No, you're on track. And I think kind of tying all this together, collaboration is the word that comes to my mind. Collaborating so that everybody has everything in one place and not on 7 different desktops. That goes in with communication. But then also kind of tying into what Chuck said, 2023 is going to be a hard year. And so I think getting buy-in from the employees that we've got to decrease waste. As owners of the company, I think we should be shopping to see, is there a better cell phone plan out there? Is there better insurance that's less expensive? I think this time of year is a great time when we are slower, because everybody's slow. All of our clients we're talking to right now are slow. To look at all those expenses and see where can we cut out the fat. But you do have to have everybody's buy-in on this.
Mm-hmm. Of all companies in this industry, I've only know of one that is not seeing a big slowdown right now. And the reason they're not, they have built a marketing monster on site there. I'm not going to bring the company up, but I recently did a SWAT there, and their backlogs, their calls are still coming in. And it's because of the presence they have created in the market that they work in up there. And so understanding that they're going to weather, but he has also built a reserve fund up. He's got 6 months in the bank right now. So this slowdown, he's going to be able to weather through this. Cheryl, what's your thoughts on the SWOT process and how this can enable a company to determine what their issues are and build a good strategy coming out of a SWOT?
Well, the thing about the SWOT, it gives everyone a chance to speak. You hear ideas maybe you haven't thought about. You definitely hear stuff that you didn't know about. And you're able to work with it. Now it's on the table. Are you going to do anything with it? So if a company will take the SWOT and take the information they get and work within the company with it, number one, you've got a better culture going on. You've got a better bottom line that's going to come out of it. And within a couple months, if you can cure at least 2 or 3 of the bad problems, then you have come a long way. But the main thing is you have got to take it the next day and run with it. You can't sit there and let it simmer for the next 12 months before you do another one, because if you don't act on the problem that someone's seen, they're not going to tell you next year. So it's just a thing you have to see, do, and make sure everything at least gets acknowledged and touched on.
Yeah, and that's a key failure of SWATs. Whenever management does not take the information from the SWAT and nothing happens, then you're going to have your culture is going to start turning upside down because now they've spoken, but you don't want to do anything about it. Josh, have you got any thoughts on the matter of SWATs?
No, they're definitely eye-opening. Even if you think you have the best run company, there's always room for improvement. And we used to do them we haven't, it's been a year now since we've done one, but early on, there's a lot of pain in those, right? But and there can be a lot to focus on. And I go back to Michael Eisner when I listened to his masterclass. He says you can put a list of 10 together, but 3 is where you're going to get stuff done. Your top 3 pain points, because 10 is really too much to manage, but 3 is where you want to be.
Yeah, and one of the things that Brandy helped me develop in the SWAT process was developing action plans because we were sitting there and talking. So something that I've implemented into all ones that I do now is we create an action plan. We go through and everybody that's in the meeting selects and we come up with a vote of what are the leading weaknesses in the company. And from that point, we get everybody's input in a very unique way where it's all down on paper. And then we start developing what Brandy called action plans that sometimes I forget the name action plans. I actually have to make myself a note going in. What do you call these? So, but they're action plans. So we leave there with those solid action plans to go forward. So anyway, the SWOT, it's a proven system. And if you're not doing it, I'm going to highly encourage you. You need to do this. It's something that I've been trained to do. I've done a pile of these. I do a pile of them every year. And like I said, just did 2 this week. And it's like every week right now, I'm doing 2 a week somewhere in the U.S. So Brandy, what's your next hot tip for 2023?
Initiative. Have initiative. Identify those on your team that have initiative. Last week I taught the CSR basics class here in Kansas City. The problem with that class is that everybody in that class already has initiative. They're already at the class. They're already superstars in their own right because they know how important that continuing education is. Jerry, you often say that I'm a hard person to work for. And I think though, and I've really perseverated on that. And I think though, it's because I require a lot of initiative if you're going to work here. I can't have you just punching in and punching out and just going through your day like a zombie. You have to take initiative and start new projects, come up with new ideas, or you can't be on the team.
Yeah, and that is. And when I say you're a hard person, yeah, that's exactly right. Someone that's going to work for you, Brandy, they've got to present that initiative. If they just want to exist, if they just want to be a knot on the log, they're not going to have a long career working for you. And it's like this is one of the things about coaching is you've got to learn to work with the different clients' personality, which sometimes can drive you up the wall because it's they're the customer, they're the boss. So we got to learn to work with them, right, Brandy?
They are, but I've had to let some go because they did lack that initiative. And so it's just a waste of the company's money.
Yeah, I hear you.
So,
Cheryl.
where do I land in those two? You've both been my coach.
We'll have to talk offline.
Yeah, that's all. Like I said a
show.
while ago, Josh, you might not have been the perfect client. Okay, we'll just leave it at that. Okay.
You
So
already
Cheryl,
brought up earlier before the show what one of the weaknesses is.
yeah. So Cheryl, what do you think about the word initiative? And I agree with that because it's very hard to keep that drive going when the phone isn't ringing. When the phone stops ringing, we start seeing people's initiative start to dry up. Also, if the bank account starts to dwindle, that puts fear in the people's mind. It blocks their imagination. So what's your thoughts, Cheryl?
Number one, start before it starts. Start prepping for these times because we all know they're coming. Right now we see them coming in a month or two. We saw this coming 2 years ago. It was on the horizon, it was headed that way. And that's where you start preparing to keep your people with their initiative high because you cannot start after all the crap's hit the fan and try to clean it up at that point. So you have to have a progressive point that you work with your people to keep that wow, the umph, the whatever you want to call it, the initiative. You can't stop. That it's not just when times are coming up bad next month. You cannot start right now and make it right.
Okay. So Cheryl, what's another hot tip coming out of you right now for 2023?
Well, mine's training slash learning, but the actual thing I wrote down is teach people to know more than you do. I always, when I teach someone, I want them to be better than me because I want them to do the things that I don't want to do. And then you teach the people that you've taught to teach the next person better than they are because it helps them out. So many employees don't want to train other new employees because they're afraid they're taking their job. They're actually not, they're making their job better. So, my thing is teach or train people to be better than you are.
Okay. Randy, as a person that works with office people around the country, what does Cheryl's words say to you?
Well, I mean, I agree 100%, especially the part about like bringing in people with skills that you don't have. I'm super excited because I'm interviewing CSRs next week, and I talked to one this morning, and she has like mega mad Excel skills, which I lack, my other CSRs lack. So I'm hoping that she's a good fit for us because I would love to have somebody in here with wicked Excel skills. And I agree too. Yeah, you can't be intimidated by the people that come in. If you think that they're going to be better than you and take your job, then you just need to step up your work.
Yeah, so you should take that as a personal challenge that if you're fearful they're going to be better, you got to get better. And often that's what I tell people when they have a tech and his sales are dropping. I said, what will cure this is when you hire somebody else and they start knocking it out of the park and they start looking at this new guy that's getting farther along than they are. That's going to be an eye-opening experience for them completely. Josh,
I
what's your
agree.
feeling? Yeah, Josh, what's your feeling on what Cheryl just said?
Well, just a little stick on what you just said, actually, Jerry. There's a story at a steel mill where I don't know, they were making I beams or something, and then each time they made an I beam, they would just the workers one day decided they were putting chalk marks on the floor, and then the second shift came in and said, "Well, what's that about?" I said, "Well, they did 3 turns or whatever," and I said, "Well, we can do better than that." And then the next shift came and did 4 turns, and and then all of a sudden the competition started, and then productivity, like doubled because all of a sudden these guys were like, well, we're better than that shift. So just going back to that.
Yeah, got you covered. So Brandy, what's another one you got there on that list of hot tips that you've assembled for us?
Well, I'm going to use another abbreviation since we had that LOR. That's going to stick in my brain. EI. Do you know what EI stands for?
I have no idea.
Does anybody want to take a guess on the call? Emotional intelligence.
Wait a minute. Emotional intelligence.
Emotional intelligence. Yeah. So this is something that I've worked into all my classes, and I'm also working with my clients on. I have like a short test that they take to see where they're at on the emotional intelligence score. Emotional intelligence is something that you can get better at and you can work on. And so I think that that's something that we should all be working on continuously, but especially in 2023, is developing that emotional intelligence, because people with high emotional intelligence will excel in all areas of their life. Is Josh saying he has a 0? Josh, put something there.
Josh,
I'm sure I rank really low there.
Well, there's areas I rank low as well. I mean, there's definitely, and I know there's a lot of areas I need to work on in it, but they've proven that emotional intelligence is way more important than IQ.
Okay, interesting. Cheryl, how does that rhyme with disc assessing people? Which ones have the higher emotional intelligence, you think?
I would say the S and C's do, definitely, because that's the part of their behavioral that excels.
Okay.
D's and I's, we run by the seat of our pants. They actually have a different gear than we do, I think.
Yeah. And also a Facebook user, for some reason, StreamYard doesn't identify some people. I would also suggest Six Sigma training for employees. Six Sigma training is a very useful tool for process improvement, self-motivation. I suggest at least the green belt level for employees and black belt for management. And very true. I will agree with that. I think I know who that is. He's one of our watchers every week. So it's Brad Smith. So that's who I thought it was. Brad comes from a background of manufacturing. He's a chimney service person down in Columbia, South Carolina market area. So anyway, really good stuff. So Cheryl, have you got any others you want to share? Did that cover your hot topics for 2023?
It covered most of mine. The main thing is work on what you need to work on the most. Start there and work towards the second one after that.
That's it. Josh, you got any more?
No, I don't.
Okay. So Brandy, let's do one more from Brandy's side. Brandy comes up with good ones. I know she does deep thinking into this.
Leadership. We are all leaders. I don't care if you're the janitor, the garbage man, or the CEO. Everybody is a leader. And so leaders are not born. That's a common misconception. I think we've talked about that before. They're made, and we all can improve on our leadership skills.
And, you know, we've had Sean Kramer here as a guest who did a presentation and at the National Chimney Sweep Guild Convention in Mohegan Sun. And I can vouch for this. I'm seeing a dedicated difference in the workforce he has from the leadership training he is putting these people through. It's really a fantastic process of what he's doing. So I'm in full agreement there. And it's just like Brandy said, none of us are born leaders. We have to learn the process of leadership. Now, if you have charisma, leadership is easier. Brandy, would you agree with that?
I do agree.
It does.
And it's a lot easier to get buy-in.
It's a lot easier to get buy-in if you have that charisma, but not every leader has that charisma. If we look at it, there's some leaders that have no charisma whatsoever, and we even wonder what attracts people to follow that leader. But it is the way they carry themselves and the words that they speak. So Cheryl, what would you say about leadership?
That's always at the top. And like Brandy said, everybody's a leader. Don't hang your head because you think you're not, because the person that is following you will see it. And you never know what words you say or what you happen to do, how much it may influence somebody that day or the next year. You never know when it's going to hit.
Yeah, got you covered. So anyway, I think we've covered some good hot topics. We've talked about swap meetings. We've talked about communication. We've talked about initiative. We've talked about communication. We've talked about emotional intelligence. One of Brandy's there. So I think we've covered some pretty good things. It's kind of like Josh said a while ago. If you get too many things, you're going to be spread out. So you got to focus in. And this is what I tell everybody. What can you do today that is going to make the biggest change for you tomorrow? What is the major pain that you got to eradicate in your business and your life? And once you come up with what those are, developing a system, developing a process that can go there. Cheryl, any words you want to add in here before we end out for the day?
No, I think we've given people a lot to think about, a lot to work on. And I just hope that one thing that you were talking about is what they'll take in effect today.
Got it. Brandy, any last words from you?
Of course. I'm just going to tie it all of these up with the word expertise. So become an expert in all of these areas.
That's it. Josh, what about you?
No. I will tell you, if you have ADD, I got a new fidget is really helpful for me.
I got it.
Oh, very cool.
Fidget putty. It's thinking putty.
Well, I want to thank everybody for joining us this week on this episode of the Chimney and Fireplace Success Network. We broadcast every Friday whenever we can be here. Sometimes, some weeks, a lot of us cannot be here. In fact, I think Brandy and Cheryl enjoy it whenever I'm not here because they get to take over and run it like they want to. So I think they prefer that when I'm not here on some Fridays. But anyway, we are available every week. If you need to reach out to someone, if you need someone to help you put your processes together to develop your digital knowledge base that we're talking about, Josh is the guy. You want people, if you want to know about DISC, about hiring, Cheryl's your gal. If you want to know about office staff, how to make it move forward, how to make that software work, then Cheryl's your person. So reach out to us. Let us know how we can help you turn your business dreams into your business realities. And with that, we'll see you next week on the next episode of the Chimney and Fireplace Success